Hello, this is Chloe Penalino, and welcome to The Source Within, where I share the source within me with hopes it sparks the source within thee. And in this video, I'm going to be talking and reflecting on my trip to Mount Shasta. It was my very first van life adventure on the road. And I'm going to share some reflections basically I had on that journey. But before I get into that, I'm going to set up the framework a little bit of what my background was and how did I even get to the point of van life. I was a clinical social worker. I still am a clinical social worker, but I was in the traditional field working in the mental health field basically, and I burned out in a lot of ways. I decided to travel internationally for 10 months. Traveled all over Africa and Italy and some other places, and it was an amazing experience. Upon my return, I went to live with my parents, who were residing in Oregon at the time. And it was just before all of this happened, they decided to sell their house and they were going to move to a different state. And at that point in time, I had never thought about van life before. I hadn't researched it. I didn't know much about it other than, people lived out of their van and they traveled and that's what they did. And all of a sudden when I got this news and was unsure about where I was going to live, I said, okay, I think I'm going to get a van or I'm going to live on the road, something like that. And it literally occurred within less than 2 months from when I found out that I was no longer going to be able to live where I was going to live and the time that I got on the road, in terms of getting this van, putting the stove, the cooktop in it, and actually getting out onto the road. So it was a big kind of a quick turnaround. It was totally unexpected. Again, I did not do much research on what it means to live out of a van or how to do it or anything. However, I am a Virgo, so I was very organized and tried to get all the stuff I would anticipate needing, etc. And so basically when I got on the road, the first place I wanted to go was Mount Shasta. I had been called there. I had visited there a handful of times the year before. It was a few hours from where I was living at that point in time, and I was just drawn to go to Shasta. Now, when I first started out on this trip, it was November. It was the beginning of November, and in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, it's cold it can be cold. So here I am, I'm driving. I stop at a friend's house, and actually they were in Portland, Oregon at the time, and I remember thinking, I don't have any boots with me, and I better get boots. So I got on Facebook Marketplace and found some boots and went and picked them up on my drive basically down to Shasta, which is in Northern California. Thank God for those. I definitely needed them. So when I arrived and there was just this magnificent sunset that I was overlooking from Mount Shasta. And it was like, oh my gosh, here I am. I have arrived. This is real. And I remember climbing a rock, Ascension Rock. Well, it's actually a different one, Mount of Venus. And sitting on top of it and just taking in the most amazing views around me. And it was this moment of holy crap, dreams truly can come true. I was living this kind of traditional, by the book lifestyle and felt really trapped and kind of is this ever going to end? Is this what I'm looking at for the rest of my life? And when I was thinking about just the traditionalness of and the monotony of day in, day out, the traditional 9 to 5, that prospect really rocked me. It didn't sit well with me anymore. At one point in time, that was all I wanted. That was, the career and, the esteem that comes with the title of this position and more responsibilities and, all of this. That's what I wanted at one point in time. And yet it left me feeling super empty at one point in time in my life. It left me super empty, really depleted, burnt out, and lacking hope, because how I was living in the traditional, what we're taught type of lifestyle wasn't no longer fulfilling. It the prospect of that being the rest of my entire life was hopeless feeling to me. So when I got to Shasta and I was sitting on this mountain and like drove this van here and, you know, had set myself up so I could have a virtual private practice, but I could, you know, live a life where I was traveling at the same time, and I was just sitting on that rock. It was truly this moment of like, this is possible. You know, it is possible to live life in really whatever way you want to. Now, I'm not saying it happens like overnight, but in this case, like within less than, you know, it's like a month and a half, less than that, all of this kind of fell into place and lined up, even without me like manifesting and like putting my intention and effort towards it. This even came about. So just imagine what you could do if you put more effort and intention towards things. And if you're interested in that, check out Clearing with Chloe. That's my other channel where I teach more about this stuff. But it was that moment of like, oh my gosh, anything is possible. You know, like really anything is possible. And it was a moment when I sat on that rock, like filled with hope. And I hope you are feeling that way as well. And this is part of, you know, the reason I'm putting out this story in general is to inspire you to live a life that you desire. It doesn't have to be by the book. It doesn't have to be the way we were taught. What you find fulfilling in your life is, you know, unique to you, but it's really possible. So here I am on this mountain and like this beautiful, like just amazing surrounding, taking this all in. The colors of the sky were just amazing, as if painted for me, like a picture. And so whatever, I was on the mountain and I found this little spot in Redford Flat, also known as Ascended Master Forest, where I parked my van, and there was not a soul on the mountain. When I first got there were some, but you know, after a day or two that I was on the mountain, I didn't see any cars, I didn't see anybody. And mind you, I didn't check the weather. That's it. Okay, so learn from my lessons about that. Check the weather before you go on trips. This was my first one out, like talk about amateur hour. Because basically on the second day or something like that, I woke up and there was snow. I was like, it was snowing, it was coming down, it was heavy. And I was like, okay, like this is, you know, this is what's happening now. And I had these snowshoes with me, and I brought them not expecting to be using them in the way that I did, as you'll see through my story and my shorts and the Van Life Travels playlist. I basically like was snowshoeing a path to get out, and thank God I had those snowshoes. But anyways, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So backing up a little bit, I pulled in this area. I was in the middle of nowhere. There was nobody around. It was pretty isolated. And people ask, like, am I scared about that? No. Being in nature to me is like way safer than being around a bunch of people. And I'll probably comment more about that at some point in time. But if you're wondering, like, feel free to ask questions about that in the comments or what have you. And I'm curious, other people who have van lifed, what your thoughts are about this. But for me, at least throughout my journeys, I liked being in nature, being by myself. I felt much safer there than if I was like surrounded by a whole bunch of people personally. So I wasn't fearful at all. But there was a lot of unknown because the snow started falling, right? So anyways, sitting there day 2, day 3, I was sitting outside on this log and I was looking up to the stars. It was just really magnificent. No light pollution there. So the stars were magnificent. And I feel this like presence come and like sit next to me on a log. And this isn't the first time I felt beings. But it was so profound. Like it was like startling how how physical and how tangible it felt when this being sat next to me. So anyways, it sits down, and I was trying to figure out what being it was or what have you. It ended up being Serapis Bey, who's an ascended master. I work with him a lot. And he said to me, 7 days. And I was like, 7 days? What do you mean 7 days? And that's kind of like all they said, and then left me. And I was like, 7 days, huh? And I was like, oh, you mean 7 days like I'm supposed to be here for 7 days? And I got confirmation, yeah, you're supposed to be here for 7 days. And I was like, whoa, 7 days here. I hadn't planned anything. Again, I was on the road, quick turnaround. I had to be out of the house. The house was sold. I literally had to like get out the house. I was the last one to leave the house. Like, it was sold. The cleaning people were coming in to, whatever. So I didn't do a lot of forethought. I didn't do a lot of thinking ahead. So 7 days, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be here for 7 days. I was like, I don't even know if I have enough food for 7 days. Again, I was a newbie. I grabbed a couple of soup cans or something, But I thought I was like, all right, 7 days. I was like, I think I can make 7 days. And I like looked and thought I had enough food. So that was my plan. And so I was on the mountain for 7 days. And it was like my initiation basically into van life and into like whatever this was on a much more spiritual level too. And the snow kept coming down and I kept being like, how am I going to get out of here? And that was when I encountered the angel of faith. No, the angel of trust, rather. Actually, I meant both, faith and trust. But the angel of trust really also came to me in a pretty profound way. And basically instructed me to trust that I would make it through these 7 days and that I would be okay. And so I leaned on that, and I was really positive. I mean, I was doing what I needed to do. I was snowshoeing my way out, making my little path, thinking, okay, well, I have, this will work out just fine. And I wasn't going into fear mode. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me? I kind of was just leaning into trusting that there was a reason I was here. And also, this was during the elections, the 2024 elections, November elections. And in fact, part of why I was there, I was guided to be there, was actually to hold some sort of balance during the election period. Because Mount Shasta holds it's a power center. It holds a lot of really profound energy. So I was also supposed to be there during that time, unknowingly to me again. It wasn't part of the plan. And this is part of van life. This was part of at least my journey of van life, was I was meant to sit in the unknown, and I was meant to kind of follow where I was being led. I didn't do that always. And in fact, I'll talk more about that on my journey. What I wish I would have done less of was like trying to appease people by going to visit them on my travels, rather than just traveling where I wanted to travel. It was like more like, oh, I'm going to go see this person or this person. And that kind of overtook maybe more of what could have been the unknown, and more of going with the flow. It was like I was trying to be in more control of it. So if I had done something differently, that would have been one factor for sure. So I'm on the mountain working with the angel of trust, and within, a day maybe, or it was just so quick how it all happened. All of a sudden, once I had surrendered and trusted that everything's going to work out, all of a sudden I hear some vehicle start pulling up from some area. And I look over, and it's like this bright turquoise Jeep with these huge tires that are just churning through the snow, no problem. It's just coming on in and just churning through the snow. And it had little smokestacks coming out of it. And this kind gentleman, must have been in his 80s, came over and saw me, or whatever. I walked towards him, snowshoed towards him, wherever it was, and he asked if I was okay, and it's like he appeared kind of out of nowhere. It was very magical, and this was the theme of this first trip. It was very magical, and he kind of appeared out of nowhere, and he said, oh, I just had this feeling that I needed to come up here. And he did, right? And so he made tracks along my tracks and made full tracks, and he was, concerned about me getting out. And I told him, well, I still have to stay some days. I'm not getting out yet. I'm staying here. And he couldn't believe that I was staying in my van. He's like, well, do you have any heat in there? Like, how are you staying warm? Which, by the way, a Mr. Buddy heater really helped. That's literally how I stayed warm. And some rechargeable hand warmers. Clutch. Very important. And anyway, so he said, okay, if you want to stay up here, it's up to you. He said, maybe I'll come check on you again if I don't see you, down there in a few days or something. And he was like, when you come down the mountain, let's get coffee or something like that. And so we tentatively scheduled a time when I would come and meet him. And so that trip, the first trip out, and one night I saw all these shooting stars that were just like amazing. And for a first trip out, it was really magical. There was such, it was, I met this angel of trust. It was like, believe that good things can happen. The universe has got your back. You're going to be supportive. Yes, there's so much unknown for you right now, but like, trust, lean in the angel of trust and know that you are supported and you're going to be okay. And even more than you're going to be okay, like, you're going to be exposed to all this magic. And so it was a beautiful trip. It was a beautiful confirmation that I was on an okay path, that I had made the right decision or fallen into the right path. And also there was really a sense of accomplishment at the end. I had survived over 7 days at that point on a mountain, really pretty much by myself, although I had this great, human that came. I love how we're all connected, and though divine works through all of us, perhaps the divine, maybe Saint Germain sent him along to help me, who knows. But it was a beautiful example of how we can work with basically a divine realm. The universe has our back if we believe and we have trust and we have faith that can be the possibility. And also trusting our own self and our own intuition and our own wisdom as well. And so it was very empowering. It was a very profound trip. It was obviously the first one out. And I will say, though, after that 7 days, I was ready for the warmth. So I hightailed then. After, as you'll see in the next videos, I make my way down California and down to some more warmer weather, which is where a lot of people that do van life go. They go south, of course, because of the warmth. So, that's my recap and review, and that's a background kind of context of how I ended up even in the first place doing van life, and how the first trip even played out. And, I was boiling snow. Like, I didn't have enough water. Yeah, so I was boiling snow. Yeah. Which is just, it's all a beautiful experience. Life is a beautiful experience. But like, how much I lived within a 7-day period, right? A 7-day period of travel versus how we live 7 days in the traditional 9-to-5 grind. What a juxtaposition. How much we can feel as though we live in a shorter period of time versus when we're kind of shut off from the wonders of life and the possibilities. That we're caught up in when we kind of live more traditional lifestyles. And to each their own, and there's nothing right or wrong with any path that you're choosing. It's just, is it in alignment with you? And if not, my point is that it's possible to change that. Even if it looks kind of impossible at the moment, you planting the seeds of what you would like to change even makes that possible for the future. So do know that if you want a different lifestyle, if you want something different in your life, know that it's possible. If nothing else, take that away from this. So thanks for sharing this time with me. As always, I share the source within me with hopes and sparks the source within thee. And let me know what you're thinking about doing and how you're changing your life. I want to know. inspire others as well. Have you done this in some sort of way? Or do you want to share with us in the community? Support other people. Till next time.